Hello, Prestige Heads. It's Derek. I'm joined as always by my friend and comrade Danny Bessner, and we are here for another Q&A. We're going to answer one of your questions here live on the YouTube. Well, not live, I guess, but you get the idea. Um,
Yeah, there's a
Folks,
lot of editing to these
there's a lot of
folks, you can
editing that goes
imagine,
into
yeah.
this, yeah. But if you're not familiar with how this works, those of you who are subscribe to American Prestige, supporting the show with your hard-earned dollars. We appreciate that more than you can know. You have the opportunity to join our Discord, and folks who are part of the Discord can ask questions. We pick one question most weeks. We didn't do one last week because of the Iran situation,
What
and we
happened?
were already overworked. Yeah, what happened? We're already a little overworked as it was, so we decided to not add more stuff to the plate. But most weeks we pick a question and answer it here on video for you guys. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to social media where we share clips of all these things. All this stuff helps us, as does reviewing the show, as does sharing the stuff that we put out with your friends and family members or people you hate. If you don't like the show, share it with people you hate. Who knows? Anything will work. But with that, why don't we get
Well, Derek,
into
also the Crusades. So why don't you shill the
this week's question?
Crusades?
Why don't we show the Crusades at the end?
Okay, let's
Let's
shill the
let's get into
Crusades
the
at the
question
end.
and show the
Okay.
Crusades at
I
the
I
end.
might I may or may not be rocking out during this one
Oh,
though.
okay. Yeah, Danny's rocking in the free world. Okay. So here it goes. This week's question is from James F. How do you think we should understand veterans of an all volunteer military that has been the world's primary vector for wanton death and violence for decades? Most left liberal incorporations of military veterans focus on the difficulties the U.S. soldiers endure. Think Jon Stewart and his highlighting of burn pits, without ever really reconciling the issue that U.S. soldiers have been willing participants in the slaughter of countless innocents, largely for personal gain, say free college tuition. Recent discussions on the pod have highlighted the role military veterans might play in a potential sea change in American politics, but I see this issue as a major hurdle, so I am eager to hear how you all think about this.
Yeah, so it's really a question of ethics, as I read it, right? And I tend to go on the side of that individual soldiers who are ordered to do something um, are have a different ethical responsibility than the people doing the ordering. However, if you're committing like the My Lai massacre, or if you're an Einsatzgruppe member and you're annihilating Jews in Eastern Europe, or if you're committing war crimes, that you do have an ethical responsibility, obviously, for those actions. Because if you don't do that, then I think it gets into very murky ethical territory. Because one could equally say, well, you're living in the empire. You know, like you and I are living in the United States. You're living in the empire. We are definitely benefiting from that fact in a variety of ways, not only to the sick acts that I'm playing, but our iPhones or our Androids, or the fact that we're able to basically consume calories and energy to the nth degree. And so we are equally, to some degree, culpable in the eradication and annihilation of other people around the world. And I think that there are different ways to think about this issue. I came across it most seriously in my first book. This guy Karl Jaspers, who was an a phenomenological philosopher, kind of existential philosopher in 20s, 30s, 40s Weimar Germany, wrote a book immediately after World War II. I think it was called Die Schuldfrage, the question of guilt, and he essentially argued, if I'm remembering correctly, and forgive me if I'm wrong, that the German people were in effect not guilty for the Holocaust, which he laid at the feet of the Nazi Party, and that many people, of course, at the time found this anathema, even though that was essentially the concordat that was reached after the war. The idea was that it was the Nazi Party was a criminal organization, but the entirety of the German folk, the sort of polity, couldn't necessarily be held responsible. But it's murky ethical territory. So I would just say, like, to me, there's no clear demarcation line between, a poor person signing up for the military, or someone who grew up near a military base, or even like a fourth generation military officer joining the U.S. military and then being ordered by various presidential administrations to do things that you and I and perhaps even they would disagree with. There's not a clear demarcation between that and just like living and taking advantage of being an American citizen, which is, a very advantageous position to be in vis-a-vis the rest of the world. So I don't think there's a clear answer to that. I think there are different ethical systems and different personal evaluations that one could apply to it. But I am not one who like blames veterans, and I think veterans could be a useful part of any coalition, left wing coalition that could possibly be made. But Derek, what do you think of that?
So, first of all, Carl Jasper is actually also famous for having coined the axial age, which is an ancient concept in ancient history. If anybody wants to make me happy, you could ask about the axial age for a future
Famous in quotes,
Q&A.
folks.
Yeah, famous in quotes, but yeah, we used to talk about that a lot in grad school when we were talking about Islam, the rise of Islam. The axial age is part of the backdrop to that. It's theorized. It's a theorized historical period. A lot of disagreement about that. But anyway, moving on. I think you have to take people where they are. Like I don't think you can have a hard and fast rule about any category of people, like our military veterans. All bad, all good. I think you just have to take people where they are. I think the question here sort of presupposes, or the way it's phrased kind of leads into one of the reasons why I don't think you can just blanket hold all military veterans responsible for all the horrors, to get into what you were talking about, Danny, and any more than any of the rest of us. When you say that U.S. soldiers have been willing participants in the slaughter of countless innocents, yes, I mean, obviously, largely for personal gain. And then in the parentheses, you say, for example, free college tuition. Consider what you're saying there. We have created a society where it is impossible to advance without going to college. Now, maybe that's changing now. There's too many people going to college. There's a glut of college graduates and not enough jobs for them. Maybe that's all shifting. But for decades, we told young people coming out of high school, if you don't go to college, you can't get anywhere in society. And we structured a society where that was largely true. For poor kids, we then offered this grand way out of poverty. If you can't afford to go to college, guess what you can do? You can sign up to go fight in the military and kill some innocents for us in other parts of the world, and we will pay for you to go to college. So we've created this system where you have to go to college, but if you can't afford it, it's a massive expense, but if you can't afford it, here's what you can do to get around that. And then you're supposed to judge these people for having taken what is essentially a necessary action, or what it was drilled into their heads is a necessary action if they want to have a future, if they want to have any economic uh, any ability to survive or thrive in this economy. I just don't think you can blame people as a rule, as a category, for making that choice. It's just the logic has been ingrained into people's heads so strongly that it's hard to consider other alternatives. So yeah, I mean, I guess my position on this would be, I think certainly there are problems when you uh, do what the Democratic Party did, has been doing for really quite some time now, and you just decide that every congressional race should be run by a retired colonel or a retired CIA analyst or whatever, somebody who's really invested at the upper levels in the empire and in the terrible things that the empire does. That I disagree with, but for the average veteran, and can these people be incorporated into a movement to try and make the world better? Yeah, I mean, I think, and oftentimes they're the leading advocates for it because they've experienced this shit. Like they've experienced firsthand what the empire has to do to stay alive, and they reject it. I mean, it's unfortunate that they participated in it, I guess, but they're able to speak on it in a much more direct way and to reject it in a much more direct way, and they can be some of the most effective voices in that regard. So I think it's got to be, you got to approach it person by person. I guess is the ultimate thing that I'm saying here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And to me, it would be silly to, have a blanket veterans shouldn't be part of any left wing movement. I think that the ethics breaks down pretty quickly among along pretty any standard analytical line. Um, yeah, so Derek, that's all I have to say about good veterans,
Why don't
our,
you
our
tell
beautiful
people about the
veterans today.
Crusades if they haven't already heard?
Yeah, so for people listening, we
Speaking of
released
veterans, the Crusades, a lot of veterans of the
speaking of our
Crusades were,
favorite veterans,
yeah,
were veterans of the Crusades.
veterans of the First Crusade.
The First Crusade. So we released a series that people could buy a la carte. It is the website welcome to the crusades.com, which is the name of the series. It's Welcome to the Crusades. Again, that's welcome to the crusades.com. We did 10 episodes, but it's more than 10 hours of content. It's probably somewhere between 14, 15 hours of content ish, where we analyze with our friends over at the We're Not So Different podcast, Luke Walters and Eleanor Yanaga. You all know Eleanor. She's been in a ton of things. She's been on the show a few times. She's really excellent, and Luke is great too. Where we run through the First Crusade and what happened, how it happened, why it happened. And so we'd love to do more of this. So we released the first two episodes on our free feed. If you haven't checked them, check them out. Check them out. We also, of course, release it on the paid feed. And so go again to welcome to the crusades.com. We're also going to be doing more series, particularly for annual subscribers, but we'll talk about that more a bit later. But we think you'll really enjoy them. And yeah, thank you all for taking the time to listen.
Thanks, everybody, and as Danny was just doing, keep on rocking in the free world.
Keep on rocking in the free world. Bye.
That's